Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Youthman. As you can see, I'm not in my home theater, but I'm in my friend John's home theater. Today we've got an exciting home theater tour for you during the Florida home theater tour. In John's space, we're going to be looking at Totem speakers. He's got JVC projector, some REL subwoofers, just a really cool space, and a lot of stuff he's done himself. And so we're going to talk about his complete speaker system, all of the components, all of the equipment, but then we're also going to have a conversation at the end and really just kind of pick his brain on why did he make the decisions that he did here in his theater room. My whole desire and goal out of the Florida home theater tour is to provide inspiration for you. Maybe you're wanting to do something similar to this in your home theater setup. Now, before we get into the home theater tour, I want to give a big thanks to today's sponsor, M-Wave. M-Wave is radically different than any other AV event that you have ever attended. Join us July the 22nd through the 24th in Lawrence, Kansas for an exciting weekend of connecting with other AV enthusiasts, audio and video demos, and some good old Kansas City barbecue. Experience RTJ's Tower of Power, Martin Logan's flagship Neolith speakers, and participate in a blind amplifier and projector shootout. New gold and platinum VIP options will be announced soon, as well as virtual tickets for those that can't make it in person. Sign up for the M-Wave newsletter to be the first to be notified. Visit MidwestAVExperience.com for tickets and complete details. So John, thanks so much for inviting me into your beautiful home, man. This has been a lot of fun. We spent probably the last hour and a half just going through some demos, both music as well as movies. And so I'd love for you to kind of just walk us through, give our folks just an opportunity to kind of see your home theater, what it's all about. We'll talk about the decisions that you've made and maybe even some of the mistakes that you've made along the way. Some challenges that you ran into, as we all do when we build a home theater. But let's start with the space that we're in. Kind of what size room are we in, and where's this located in your home?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks very much for having me on your channel. This means a lot to me. It's been really quite a long 3 years of putting this together. It's more of a do-it-yourself project. And just getting guidance from a lot of you guys on YouTube really been a big help.
But, I appreciate that.
But this thing has started, actually this room was originally the front foyer of a home, of our home. And it was converted by some previous owners to a bedroom. And that made the space a little bit limiting for what we have to work with, because as a front foyer, it's 11 feet wide by 22 feet long, which basically means that we've got that shoebox effect where we've got a lot of nulls in the middle of the room and problems with bass that we had to deal with, and I didn't know we had to deal with that up front. But that's how the room started, as a foyer, and then we put in the riser in the back, and the screen is a drop-down Stewart screen that drops out of a soffit, so it's nice and clean and built in front of our closet, which holds the equipment. So, so that's the room.
So we're looking at 11 feet by 20...
About 22 feet
22
long,
feet,
and about an 8-foot ceiling.
Gotcha.
So standard room ceiling size.
Yeah, definitely. And so that kind of gives you a visual representation of the space we're working with. Not a massive area, but I love the fact that you've got plenty of room, leg room for your rear seats. And we're going to go through and talk about each aspect of your home theater. So I think the best place to start is we'll go right up to the front. So John, tell us a little bit about the screen that you've got here.
Well, you know, it was very important to me to pick a higher quality screen. I know that when you match projectors to screens, there's certain qualities that I wanted, and I didn't want the graininess, I didn't want the reflection points. So the Studiotek 130 gain, 1.3 gain, G4, it's their latest, greatest, and it self tensions itself after it drops down. So it was a fantastic choice for the JVC. A lot of folks recommend the 1.3 gain with the NX7, which is my projector, and that's why I went with it. It was the right match for the projector, really.
Sure. And 1.3 gain just means that it's going to be more reflective, so it actually gives you a little bit brighter picture, correct?
Yeah, just a little bit brighter, which again was the right match with the wide color gamut on the NX7, which I love so much.
Yeah.
So yeah, that and it was the perfect match. It really was one thing that worked out right the first time, I have to say.
Very cool. So why did you need to go with a drop-down screen? I mean, we're in a dedicated theater room. Most people don't go with that. Why did you choose that?
Yeah, and maybe, like I said, if I had to do it again, maybe I'd reverse the whole room and put a fixed screen up. But behind this is the electronics closet, so I needed access to the closet. And I had a carpenter come and make a custom soffit, so it looks very nice and it disappears up into the ceiling. So it is a nice little effect for people. But ultimately, yeah, fixed screen might have been better just because I could maybe do a little different speaker configuration.
Gotcha.
Which could have been done better.
Yeah. Well, speaking of speaker configuration, what do you have going on up front and then for your surrounds and your Atmos speakers?
Okay. Well, let me just tell you from the beginning, the speakers were the most important part of this process for me. I spent many, many months researching. This was a 3-year process. And I went and demoed and auditioned with several different locations, speakers like Kef, Paradigm, Golden Ear. All the ones that 3 years ago were out there. Now there's a lot of newer things now that would probably be better, but I'm dealing with what that was available at that time.
Yeah.
And I came across and listening to these things, and I couldn't use floor standers because we have the entry door right here at the front.
Sure.
And in this small room, how am I going to? That was very challenging dealing with tower speakers in a room like this.
Sure.
So my choices were in-wall or on-wall.
Gotcha.
I decided to go with a company called Totem out of Canada. These are Totem Tribes speakers in the front, and Totem is a Canadian-based company. They hand build their speakers, furniture grade, and they're quite popular. Not so much in the United States, but believe it or not, the United States team, their corporate team here in the United States, were fantastic dealing with. And you can get these things, and the best part, I think, overall in this process is that none of the speakers you're going to see in this room I bought full price brand new.
Yeah. You found some Youthman deals is what he's trying
to
say.
That's what I'm saying.
That's
Through
awesome.
the help of other YouTubers like yourself, getting some demos that they have, but mostly off of an online company called US Audio Mart.
Yeah.
They also have a Canadian affiliate, and they'll actually search both American products for sale and used products for sale and Canadian products for sale on the same page.
Gotcha.
And so I just searched for these things, and the first thing I did was buy a floor standing speaker, their smallest set.
Yeah.
I wanted to hear it in my home and listen to it. And boy, did I love it, because I wanted to stay away from the speakers, the Kefs, and not necessarily the clips, but I didn't want the high, shrilly brightness of speakers. Yeah. I'm getting older, my ears get fatigued much easier. Gotcha. Maybe it's too many concerts back in the day. I don't know. Yeah. But for me, I wanted that musicality. I wanted that wide dispersion and then the really fantastic sound. And you really get that out of a high quality speaker, all built together, built in a cabinet where it's designed and just to sound like it's supposed to sound. Yeah. And so I went with the in walls, and the Totem Tribe IIIs are my base layer.
Gotcha. So you got
all
three
around.
here and
three here.
One
and
of them's kind of
hang.
mounted up here. How'd you mount that? That's
well, this was trial and error, but the best way I found to hang this speaker where I can continually adjust it and keep it pointed at my center seating position was with just basic rubber bungee cords and attached very securely by eye hooks in the ceiling. Nice. And I could adjust it and turn them and move them, and it worked out good. And it dropped it also lower because as the higher you go up, the sound, I really wanted the sound to match the screen as best as I could with a hang. And this thing hangs right almost in front of the screen. If it wasn't for the the 16:9, the way the picture projects onto the screen, it's right as close up front as I could get it. Yeah. And it worked out very, very well. And sound reflections were important to consider too. When you mount speakers on the wall or have in wall, you don't have to worry about the reflections on the front wall, and it really saved me a lot of energy trying to deal with some of those reflection issues.
Sure. So we've got Tribe 3s up front.
Yeah, the Totem Tribe 3s in the front. Mm-hmm.
And then what are we running for your side surrounds and rear surrounds?
Same thing, the same Tribe 3 surrounds.
So this is all identical.
All identical speakers in the
for the bed layer.
Bed layer.
Okay.
And the Atmos layer is the Totem Tribe 1s and 2s. Okay. some of these things, I had to mix and match a little bit, but they're the exact same tone, the exact same speaker.
Yeah.
But I basically hung these wall hangers upside down on the ceiling because they have a very wide dispersion. They're known for their imaging and their dispersion. So, yeah, would I change it, and would I in the future maybe add some very, very nice directional in-ceiling speakers to get that sound to the front? Yes, that's a plan for the future. But for now, this was just, it's so good to have a match system. It really is.
And I don't think a lot of people realize that. And we try to tell everybody, hey, because the reality is we don't all have all of our speakers all at once. Sometimes we buy a few, then as budget allows, then we add our surrounds, and as budget allows, we add the Atmos. So sometimes we have to use the speakers at what we have. So maybe you buy front 3 and then you're using some speakers from another brand. It does have a different tonal quality. And so having that entirely matched, especially on that bed layer, man, that's phenomenal. And we had, like I said, we had a great experience. I absolutely loved, I brought over Hans Zimmer because I knew you like music. And that was just so cool, man. Just when the orchestra kicks in, just the immersiveness that you experience here in your home theater and having those identical speakers on the bed layer, I really, really, really love that. So we've got a 7.1.4 or 7.4.4, and yours is set up for, I guess, Dolby Atmos for this particular setup. So super cool there. Definitely love what you've done with the speakers. And then you've also got 4 subwoofers. Tell us about those.
Again, in my research, and this is probably something that I would do differently now through the help of your new and really good Discord channel. You get a lot of help there. A couple guys, Zach and Aaron, have kind of shown me maybe some of this advice I should have gotten up front. But then again, 3 years ago, I didn't have the resources. Even some of the Tampa Bay area stores really weren't into the audiophile. It's really hard to find a good audiophile place. Not a lot here in the Tampa Bay area. You would have to go to Miami or somewhere else. But nevertheless, the REL subwoofers is what I went with. I've got 2 REL Predators. They're 15-inch subwoofers in the rear.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, REW placed and matched and balanced with a mini DSP. Right. And I know you've mentioned this before in your videos. I cannot overemphasize enough what REW and a mini DSP can do to your home, no matter what crazy configuration of walls you have, like my little narrow shoebox. I tell you, it was unlistenable. The bass was so boomy and so and that just leveled it all out. And with the Dirac Live mixed, brought in with that, fantastic.
Yeah.
It really made a world of difference.
Yeah, and I did the same thing. And if you've got one subwoofer, there's not a lot, I think, that it's going to add. But when you start adding subwoofers, 2, 3, 4, those subwoofers are interacting with each other. And a lot of times they're either causing those bass boost or those peaks, what you were experiencing, it was just kind of too boomy. Or sometimes you have these big nulls, you have these lack of bass in certain frequencies. So REW and the mini DSP is a great way to physically see what's going on in your room and then make some adjustments to time alignment and EQ and things like that so that those bass frequencies kind of play nice together. And then you just get this solid impact in your room. And no room's perfect. And I know that you and I had some conversation. You've got some issues even still, even after tweaking and running mini DSP and taking measurements with REW, you still got some nulls kind of down your center section. And so you kind of prefer sitting on the left and the right. And we had a chance to, and it wasn't horrible in the middle, but definitely there's less bass in the middle than there are on your outer seats. And so possibly, getting people like Aaron and Zach that can kind of dial in remotely and then be able to tweak some areas and hopefully even fix some of those issues as well.
I also have 2 REL subwoofers in the front. They're the T9i's, which are a fantastic subwoofer. Those were my original purchase. I went up to the Predators to get more of that deep bass. But yeah, I mean, if I had to do it again, I would have an expert tell me, use these 4 subs with this amplification and we can get this room balanced properly. But it was a fun process learning. But it didn't achieve 100% of my goals. 90%, yes.
Absolutely.
90, you know, you could have a clean, hard bass. Some of it hit you in the chest, but it wasn't, you know, it wasn't the hover platforms and rocking your body like some of your other reviewers, which I love Jay to death. Shout out to the Florida Gators. That's an inside joke to Jay. We'll leave it at that.
That's right.
And yeah, so yeah, speaker choice. I wish I spent as much time researching and auditioning subwoofers as I did my bass speakers.
Yeah.
And if I would have done that, I may have gotten there quicker. But again, it's a do-it-yourself learning process. I enjoy doing
Absolutely.
it.
And in all fairness, I don't know if you were to just replace these subwoofers with 4 other brand subwoofers, regardless of what brand that is, it's not going to probably fix your issue here, your null.
Well, that's the goal, is to get the proper subwoofer and maybe use, instead of REW, MSO, and use a different tuning software.
Like built into those subwoofers?
Or externally, just to have some seat-to-seat variation and balance out a little differently, because REW and Mini DSP and Dirac Live, they all have their ways of flattening curves, and when you flatten a curve, you may flatten some things too much. And that's the issue I've run into. But again, it's not a major issue. You know, we're always trying to get that one level
extra
better
here and there.
But I can't complain. I'll live like this for a few years, because replacing subs is, you know,
that would be easy, but man, you've got an incredible system. I love what you've done. We got great speakers, great immersiveness from your Atmos speakers, your bed layer, good solid bass, not like super single digits bass, but that's not what you're going for. You know, I'm a little nuts. I've got 418s. Not everybody wants 418s, nor has the space, especially up here. Like you said, your front door, you have to be careful that you open it up really slowly, because you don't want to hit the subwoofer. And so you can't open it up all the way. So we needed something very small, very low profile, and I think these are a perfect fit for your needs. So John, I was first introduced to Velvet when I made some trips to Kansas City and Wisconsin. You've added quite a bit of Velvet, and in the video, it's just black over here. But kind of tell us what's going on, why you chose Velvet, where you placed that, and maybe even how you applied it, or maybe some lessons learned from that.
Sure. It's actually a pretty funny story. So if you look down, okay, first rule of home theater building: don't put white carpet in your theater.
Yeah, mine's light too, and
don't do it.
I would change that.
Okay, that's a future project. But the walls specifically, interestingly enough, if you look to the far side, we started with a blue-gray paint. Michelle, my partner in life, decided that she wanted something nice in the theater.
Yeah.
Too much reflection on the screen.
Gotcha.
Didn't work. So I decided to paint it black,
right.
flat black. That's the next color you see.
That's
the same
black
color
it
as
out,
the
right?
ceiling. Yeah, right. Black it out. Nope. Still too much reflection on the screen.
Yeah.
So I brought in the Velvet. Well, that didn't go over very well, as you would imagine. But nevertheless, the Velvet has been the only material I've tried, and I've tried felt. Okay, we'll talk about the windows in a second. But Velvet's the only thing that I could really use in this theater, and I staged out the whole front, literally everything in the room, to making boards across the crown molding, because even the crown molding was causing reflections, and I could see crown molding during the movie.
It's a distraction.
So it was a distraction, and this took all the distraction away. You really could focus on the movie, and importantly enough for me, I have a screen and I want to watch a movie. You've got the black bars.
Yeah.
Black bars, you know, become inkier when you don't have that reflection onto the screen. You don't have that reflection on your image. It improves your image, and it's noticeable for me.
Yeah.
And it really made a difference. So doing Velvet on the walls actually, just nail gunned really, and stapled on.
Sure.
But the windows were an issue, because this was a foyer. This has 3 huge windows in this room.
Yep.
And that's another thing. Another rule to home theaters. Don't put windows in your home theater, but they were here, and what do you do?
And you're using the space that you have, and you're making the best of it. And so I love what you've done here.
So this is almost embarrassing to say, but if you don't want to spend a ton of money on window treatments, here's what you do. I went to Walmart, I bought the cheapest bath towels I can find, and I duct taped them to the window. Now, they're very tinted, and you can't see from outside in,
sure.
so there's nothing you can see.
Right, yeah.
And then, as you can see from the
practical.
far window, I just took Velcro strips along the frame of the window. I cut felt exactly to the size, nice, thick, sound-absorbing felt to the window, and it came out wonderful.
Yeah.
And all I did differently in the front window was I just kind of, and you can see it's kind of hanging there because I don't have it completely straight the way I like it yet, but I covered that also with the velvet on this window too, and there is no reflection problems in this room. Of course, you know, we have these sound panels. You could barely see it here because I even covered the GIK acoustic sound panels with velvet too, because I was seeing reflections.
And they're black.
They're black, but you still get a
love
reflection.
it. Yeah.
So
now, John, one thing I've seen with guys that go down this, I truly believe it's a rabbit hole of black velvet, because it seems like you start off here and then you're like, but that's reflecting. And then you move it back, but I still see this, and you just keep working your way into the room. Even down here on the floor, you mentioned the carpet, so I think this is really intriguing. Let's grab one of those.
Sure.
So these are square panels that you've covered on the front, so that you can minimize the reflection back onto the screen, even from your carpet. And so, how'd you make these?
Yeah, so I effectively made a stage out of just some white foam board.
Yeah.
And I just covered that with velvet, and then I just cut them the size, and they're placed nice and even along the front.
Yeah.
And it looks like there's a nice stage front, but it takes that reflection before I can, you know, replace the carpet. It gives me some, you know, what I was looking to do there with that.
So practical, and just the fact that, like, I mean, anybody can do this. I mean, it's not super expensive. It takes some time, and of course, if you're trying to get the look of making each one of these little waves flat like you've done over here, that just takes a lot of time. But the reality, man, literally, you probably can't even see it now. I'll have to show you some close-up B-roll with lights way over here, but once the lights go out, man, this whole front end just disappears, and all you're left is just a beautiful, beautiful image. So John, here in the back of your room, you've also got some acoustic treatment, and I even see some on the ceiling. Kind of walk us through those.
Okay, sure. The acoustic treatments are GIK Acoustics. They do a great job. So I have on the back wall, you can see bass traps in the corner, because I've got a lot of bass buildup in the back of the room due to its shape, and some bass trapping on the back wall with some custom graphics, as you can see.
I like that.
I'm going to expand more in the back here at some point. But interesting when you're dealing with sound treatment is dispersion versus absorption. It was interesting because you can actually have too much dispersion in a room. There's no dispersion on the sides. Maybe it's because of the windows help. But in the back, I actually had to move the dispersion down because the middle panel is dispersion, and there was too much dispersion coming into the room. And it's all trial and error. So it was a really interesting experience playing with some of these things, and then eventually trying to calm the bass down in the back, which is it's even with bass traps, it's hard. You really need tuning. So back here is a little bit boomy, but not too bad. So and the same panels that you'd hang on the walls, you can mount with ceiling mounts and clouds. So I've got 3 going across the ceiling, which it's just, again, you need it.
Yeah,
it's something,
that's an additional
so
reflection.
important.
It's a hard reflection, and you've got them in the first reflection points, which in a nutshell, the sound that bounces up is going to hit that ceiling and ultimately bounce back here, and that's going to be a delayed sound from what's coming straight at you, and that's going to make the dialogue not as clear. So if we can block that before it even hits our ears, and that's what you're wanting to achieve, and you've done a great job of that. So looking back here, you've got a second row of seat. So we've got riser back here. Kind of talk about the riser.
Well, the riser is 8 inches tall, and when we originally designed the riser, the thought process was to keep the sofa farther back against the wall. But as you go through the process and you understand bass response, you understand that's not such a good idea. So we pulled the sofa right up to the front of the riser. The riser could have been designed a little bit farther out, but you know, here it is. This is what we have. And so we have enough room in the back till we get some some distance from the back wall with the back seat. But this, all the furniture is lazy boy furniture, which is interesting because I may not have tried out enough theater seating through my process, but I really needed something. I've got a terrible back, and I really needed something that was comfortable and high quality. And the recliners, you know, and I realized, oh darn, no cup holders, right? What was I thinking? Probably could have done a better job there, but no, this is fantastic. We have tables, and these seats are great. And the placement, the 8 inches in my room, in relation to the screen size and where the screen's located, this is the perfect height. You can see over people's heads. You get the sound fairly directional. You don't really lose anything because of the high speaker up top. So you do get some good sound back here.
Yeah, and I guess that's another thing. Sometimes, you know, if you happen to mount your center channel below your screen, now you've got to kind of think about that rear row as well. You know, do you need that rear row a little bit higher? But because yours is above, like you said, it kind of comes over the front row. So actually, that's a really great choice. So I love what you've got done. You know, you've done here, and moving that back away from the back wall. I wish I had that luxury at my house. In my room, mine isn't as deep as yours. It's only 19 feet. And then I also have this massive 4-foot cabinet in the front. So now I effectively have 15 feet of space. So my rear seats are right up against the back wall, and you're exactly right. It's really boomy back there, and there's nothing I can do about it. But you were able to kind of mitigate that by moving it forward away from the back wall. And plus, you're going to get better kind of surround back here from those back 2 speakers not being right up against that wall as well. So we've covered pretty much all your speakers, your acoustic treatments, the black velvet, and the theater seats, as well as your riser. And so I'd love to sit down and just have a conversation, and let's talk through maybe some things that you've learned with this home theater. Oh, no. John, we forgot. One of the coolest aspects of the room, the first time I heard about one of these was when I went to the Trenov and Wisdom Audio home theater that I did a tour up there in Georgia. So tell us what we got going on up here. This is something kind of unique and different. You guys may not have seen these.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, first of all, one of the drawbacks for me about projection was the sound of the fan. And I like high mode. I like high, So I had to come up with a solution. So we built some shelves that are suspended from the ceiling, and I had a friend come in who's a carpenter and custom build a hush box.
Nice.
And the way we designed it, the way he put it together was we actually have a piece of theater glass in the front, which is angled properly. And I know there's some criticisms about using glass in front of a projector, but there's no noticeable difference on the screen to me. There's no artifacts. There is no anything different than if I take, to access, there's 2 small screws, take it out, the front cover pops down, I have complete access to the projector. There's no difference whether I have the glass on or the glass off on the screen image. So that was great. The hush box itself is lined inside with mass-loaded vinyl. Some of that stuff you insulate cars with for sound. Because I wanted to keep the sound in the box, and I didn't want to hear that projector. But now you have to cool this thing because they're so darn hot. So I actually have in the attic an inline ventilator, which basically pipes the air out into the other room. And there's some ventilation on the very, very back of the box that pulls the air in and keeps it nice and cool, and really pretty high-powered airflow through there. And you're going to want to do that. You don't want your lamps to overheat. I found so. And in the back of the hush box is my battery backup system on another shelf, and they just built the hush box right around it, and it's sealed, and there's a back trap door in the back so I can access the components in the back. So
I was going to ask you that, when you go to replace your projector or that particular device that, your battery backup, is there easy access to it? And it looks like you've just got 2 screws in the front.
Yeah, it pops down. It's not as easy getting to the back of the projector itself, but you can do it, and it's doable. And I've had to change out fiber optic cables because that's we can talk about speaker cable and fiber optic cables all day long, and those are important aspects of a theater too, I found. But Hushbox for me just made me enjoy the projection system finally, to the point where it wasn't that annoying fan noise.
And the other thing is heat. I mean, it introduces a lot of heat. I know I've had projectors in my room, And when I was able to move mine outside of my room and now it's just shooting into the room, massive difference in the amount of heat that is not being blown into my room than before. So having that hush box, I think that helps tremendously with that as well.
I can, you know, back you up on that. The heat in this room was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Without. It's amazing what these things put out in heat. The size of the massive JVCs are.
Yeah.
Heat
So
producers.
Google hush box and kind of see what guys have done. This is definitely an incredible idea. If you're able to do this in your room, definitely highly recommend. I think there's just a lot of benefits that you get from doing that. All right, John, every theater needs components. So you mentioned earlier, your components are behind your screen. Kind of walk us through what you've got going on back there and your thought process on that.
Sure. Again, this is a Stewart Studiotek retractable screen, so I'll press the button real quick and we'll show you how this disappears up into the ceiling.
I'll just switch places with you here.
Yeah, there we go. It goes up, and behind it is the component closet.
Gotcha.
And you got a good shot of the speakers too, and what they look like, and the size and the quality of them, quite beefy. But back here, nothing fancy, no fancy rack to deal with.
Yeah.
I really wanted a place where I could sit, place with my laptop, and all of my components here in my rack. In my research, you know, the amplification was very important. I wanted to make sure that I could have plenty of headroom in this room without having distortion.
Sure.
And that's why I went with a 4-ohm speaker setup.
Okay.
I didn't mention this before, but the Totem speakers are 4 ohms.
Sure.
And just briefly to explain, 4 ohm just allows you to expand the power of your amplifier. You really get 50% or more power of your amplifier by using a lower ohm speaker.
Sure.
And these are Outlaw amps, developed partly by ATI.
Yep.
And this is a more budget-friendly amp, but I tell you, it has a noise floor you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
Clear,
Super
clean, quiet, fantastic. So I have the 7220 is the 7-channel amp on the bottom.
Okay, so that's powering your bed layer?
That powers the bed layer, and then a Series 5000, which is a 5-channel amplifier doing the Atmos for the 4 Atmos speakers.
Gotcha.
The processor is an NAD M17 version 2 with Dirac Live, which is fantastic. And I auditioned actually in this room a couple of different processors and actually sent a couple back for various reasons, because picture quality was important, and 4K video pass-throughs on processors do change from brand to brand. It's surprising. It surprised me.
Yeah, interesting.
So for me, I had the opportunity to, not a lot of people do, but experiment with a couple of different processors. And there's a couple of processors that I like the sound more, and I really wanted the picture. That was important to me to be number one.
The visual was up here, and then, audio secondary.
Audio, but the Dirac Live brought the audio back up.
Nice,
so it was really not much of a trade-off there.
So you ended up kind of with a win-win by going with the NAD.
It really was a win-win. I have some ventilation over it, and then underneath you could barely see with the lighting, but my UB9000 Panasonic, the match, you know, that JVC and the Panasonic, they match, and the Apple TV and some of the other components I use there.
Sure.
Some power, just for some power protection up on the top. And that's pretty much it. My mini DSP and other components.
Now you mentioned the mini DSP, and I think you mentioned when you're calibrating, do you come in here and just shut the door and then calibrate in there?
That's literally what I do. I don't want my body to interfere with the microphone or anything. I come in, I shut the door, and I sit in my chair, and I have my laptop, and I just do my measurements.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's dedication right there, guys. That is dedication. I love it.
I think it's crazy, but dedication is a better word.
It's what we do.
Okay, all right.
It's what we do. Well, John, you have got an absolutely incredible space here, man. We've had a lot of fun checking out your home theater, doing some great demos, both in home theater as well as music. And so I would love to just kind of have a conversation about your journey, hopefully to help these guys that are watching this video, maybe some decisions that they make along the way, or maybe even save them some time and money, maybe lessons that you've learned. And so let's go back to about 3 years ago when you first started building your home theater. If you could do it all over again, is there anything that you would change or do differently?
Well, I tell you, I think that with the time that I spent with my speaker choice, even to go as far as purchasing a pair and listening to them before I made my final decision of buying all the speakers that are involved in building a theater, would be spend as much time with the subs and understanding how they work and how the room modes, and your room really matters more than the actual sub does.
Yeah, gotcha.
And that was one of my. Now, again, these RELs reach down to 18 hertz. That's nothing to laugh at.
Yeah,
that's
great.
some serious bass in this room.
100%.
But, you know, some of the subsonic, some of that little bit more that everybody wants to reach for, it wasn't quite there, and I really was trying to get that my first time out. So, yeah, that would be where I would make an improvement next time.
So, good thing is you can always add a subwoofer that extends lower, even and integrate it with the RELs. You can also, a lot of these guys I've been to, they're using tactile transducers, something like Oro, I think it's called Aura shakers, and then there's also, of course, the butt kickers. It's a higher end brand, a little bit more expensive, but you could always add those possibly to the theater seats, and that would give that tactile sensation without having the need for bigger subwoofers. So definitely that's one aspect. Another thing that we had quite a bit of conversation, we all go through this journey. And sometimes we try something and it doesn't quite meet our expectations, and then we try something else. And one of those areas that you've had kind of this trial and error is with your projector. So kind of walk us through, like, what was that process? What did that look like? And maybe what are some of the lessons that you learned through that?
Well, you know, I wanted native 4K for whatever reason at the time. And of course, Sony 3 years ago was my projector of choice.
Okay.
And through the products that I found between my research online on used equipment and through the help of YouTubers like yourself, I picked up you know, 2 Sony projectors. The JVC is my 3rd projector.
Okay.
I started with
in 3 years.
In 3 years. I started with the first $5,000 Sony lamp projector, and then I moved up to the $10,000 Sony lamp projector because the shadow detail, the blacks, the gray bars instead of black bars was frustrating me. And it wasn't until I went to the JVCs and they popped in with their newer technology, with the frame by frame,
frame
adapt technology. That boom, the shadow detail was there. Everything was fantastic. Now, that being said, Sonys are superstar projectors. I love them. Daylight scenes, beautiful, picturesque like imaging on daylight scenes, outdoors, mountainous skies. And I think that's the difference. I think there's a trade-off with some of these brands where Sony does such a good job. And the JVC is no slouch, but Sony, the picture's just incredible, what they've done with it. But Sony has to get their black levels a little bit up to par with JVC because I think they're kicking their butt.
So Sony, if you're watching this video, you might have
Sony.
Might have a customer come back if you can get with the program and get some deeper blacks.
I tell you, I'm surprised they haven't done it yet with how JVC's JVC's doing out there.
I've been very, very thrilled with my NX7. I mean, there's no doubt. The picture on this is gorgeous, and I know you and I had talked. You actually did the calibration for that, and you used something just super inexpensive. I believe it was the Spider X.
The Spider X, I think it was $149. It's a light calibration gizmo that you put in front of the screen. And JVC gives you free auto calibration software.
Kind of built into
you download it. Just off their website, and it's free. And there's a couple videos online shows you how to do it. I did it in a couple hours. And it was very simple, and you can play with it. You can do it in high lamp mode, low lamp mode, depending on what your SDR and HDR preferences are. And you can play with it, and I really it made a noticeable difference for me. But for the average person, it may not. The picture that a JVC is tuned to, their calibration that comes with every JVC, I guess projector is different. They tune it properly, is great.
And out of the box, good picture.
Out of the box, you don't have to do. I don't believe you have to really even do a calibration. It's just me. I'm that kind of guy. I wanted to just see if I can make it a little better.
And I had a beautiful picture with mine as well, and then a friend of mine he was down in the area, and he's like, hey, while I'm down here, you want me, I'll have my colorimeter with me because that's just what he does. He's like, do you want me to stop by and we can, you know, check yours? And so he did the measurements with the Spider X, and we made a video. I'll link to it up here. But it was a pretty simple process. It didn't take us too long. And I saw, the biggest difference I saw was my reds were pretty off. And so he was able to dial that in. And so that area, skin tones looked a lot better in my video, or in my, you know, the picture image quality. Was it massive night and day difference like I was looking at garbage before and it turned beautiful? No, but it was an improvement. And for $140, I mean, that, to me, that was definitely, you know, that'd be a worthy investment in that, and just a little bit of time and research on how to utilize that. And then maybe let's kind of talk about as well, as you're, you know, you've built out this home theater, is there maybe any advice to the guy or the woman that's watching this? Maybe they're wanting to build a home theater in their space. Kind of maybe what advice would you give to them? Maybe what are some of the lessons that you've learned, or maybe even the mistakes that you've made along the way that might save them either some time or maybe some money?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll mention it again. The biggest advice I can give anyone is to try some of this stuff out. Find something used.
And it's
try
hard
it out.
sometimes.
Now, it's 3 years later. There's so many good resources like you with these home theater tours that you're doing that you could go visit people and you could see more before you make your choice. Yeah. Because speakers sound different.
They do.
Horn speakers sound different.
100%.
Everything that you can, everything changes the sound, even to the speaker cables, literally. Don't skimp on speaker cables. I used Blue Jean speaker cables, 14 gauge. You know, use the lower gauge, which is the thicker wire gauge for your speakers. Make sure you got enough room, for, you know, because those incremental changes make a difference.
Gotcha.
I even spent quite a bit of money on my my left, center, right channels with some harmonic interconnects, which really just made that front stage come alive. Okay, but in other instances, I traded out other speaker type cables. I won't mention the brands, but I went through a few brands, and you can get those also used online or buy them new. And I found sometimes when I change a power cable, I was getting, it wasn't either, it didn't do anything or made the picture worse by changing out, because you know, you get wrapped up in, oh, I want these incremental improvements, and suddenly you're going backwards. So
definitely
everything,
don't want to do that.
So everything here has a standard, you know, in the what came with the projector cable. That's what I'm using because that matched best for the system. So yeah, you can do this and get a little OCD like I did with, I want to change everything and make it all perfect. But if you just use an inexpensive Blue Jean, good quality cable, and play around with interconnects, but basically, you know, it's something that took me a lot of time. Changing cables in, changing cables out, changing processors in, changing processors out. So the best advice is use these resources that you have now that I didn't have even 3 years ago. Like you guys and some of the other guys like me, you want to come see what a Totem speaker sounds like and how musical they are, you know, ring us up.
That's cool.
Personal message us. You know, all of us are welcome to have you come and listen and to improve your experience, because this is what we love.
Absolutely, and that's why I started the Florida Home Theater Discord group, is really to connect guys like yourself with other people, because I don't know a whole lot of people, and honestly, I didn't think there was many home theaters in Florida. Now we've got probably 22 that have been submitted, and so if you've got a home theater and you want to maybe have the opportunity of me to come and check out your home theater and feature it here on the channel, definitely head over to my website, hometheatertours.com. Submit your home theater. Man, I'd love to connect with you, and hit me up on, you know, like you said, reach out to me through email or through that website. There's actually a little checkbox that says, you know, do you want to be a part of the Florida Discord group? And that's where we get a chance to share stories and invite people that are local over to our home and say, hey man, I'd love to check out your home theater because I've never heard that brand, or I've never seen that projector. And because I mean, let's face it, all our audio stores and video stores they're kind of getting to be a thing of the past. We don't have that luxury. When I was 15 years old and 16 years old, I'd go to Sound Advice over in Tampa, And I would be there every single weekend listening and looking and really just longing for the day that I would be able to have a home theater of my own. And I love the fact that we get a chance, and I get a chance through my channel, just to share your story, to share your experiences, and to share your incredible room, because I hope that it brings inspiration to those of you that are watching this video. Well guys, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe, because I've got some incredible home theaters just like this one during the Florida Home Theater Tour. And as always, you guys be blessed, and we'll catch you in the next video.